here we are in the middle of our sermon series, right? In the trenches. And what we're doing, we're going verse by verse through a New Testament book called 1 Peter. And we've answered this question several times, and I'll answer it one more time. Why do we call it in the trenches? Well, it's because spiritually speaking, the believers that receive this letter, spiritually speaking, they have gone off the road as if they were in a car, and they're down in the ditch, they're down in the trenches, and their tires are spinning, they just can't get out. They're just having trouble being faithful, but they don't know how to live their Christian life because their culture looks down on them, their community looks down on them, the Roman government is actually actively persecuting them. So again, spiritually speaking, they've gone off the road, they're in a ditch, they're in a trench, and so that's why we call it in the trenches. And if you've been with us, you know that Peter knows all of this, of course. He knows that they're struggling, so he's been encouraging them, but he's also been pretty direct, hasn't he? He's been reminding them, yeah, I know it's difficult for you guys. I know it's hard because you're living, trying to live in, your faith in this hostile environment, but you still have to be faithful. You just still have to be faithful. And he's going to continue that theme today. And specifically, he's going to talk about how to be faithful when it comes to being married. Okay? And what we're going to find out is that God, not surprisingly, he has well-defined roles for husbands and for wives. And those roles, as we're going to see, they are different. The roles are different. The responsibilities are different. The expectations are different. And what we're going to see also today, it's going to be very obvious to us that these expectations, these God-given roles for husbands and wives, are going to be very different from what culture teaches us. Very, very different. And so because of that, for some of you, today could be just a really challenging message for you. Okay? It might be just really, really kind of a jolt to you. But that's where we're going. Because the bottom line today is that if we want a God-honoring marriage, if we want a successful marriage, we have to do things God's way and not our way. Okay, so that's where we're going today. And as I was thinking about this whole idea of marriage, I got to thinking, I wonder what the longest marriage on record is. And so I went on the internet and I found I think what is believed the longest marriage ever recorded. Okay, was a woman by the name of Bateman. They lived here in America. They both died in the 1860s. Does anybody want to guess just how long were they married? The longest marriage ever recorded. Just shout it out. What do you think? 85? No, it's more than that. How much? 103. Well, that's a little bold. They're a little bold. But actually, it was 91 years. 91 years and 12 days. So if you think you've been married a long time, man, can you imagine that? Most of us aren't even going to live 91 years and 12 days, right? I would love to ask the Batemans questions because they would probably have really good advice about marriage and all that stuff, But of course we can't do that. Why? Because they're dead. Okay? So we have to find another couple to get some good advice from. And so I went out on the internet again, and I think I found, I'm pretty sure this couple has the longest marriage going right now, and it's 86 years. The couple's name is Herbert and I think it's Zelmira Fisher. I think we've got a slide on them. Yeah, there we go. Zelmira and Herbert Fisher. Now, Herbert is 104, I think, and Zelmira is 101. And married for 86 years, okay? And I was reading this interview that was done, I think, back in February. And, they asked them all kinds of questions about marriage, and the Fishers gave their advice, really good marital advice. But the last question in the interview, actually, I thought, gleaned the most information. And that, the question was basically this: what one thing do you guys have in common that just transcends everything? What one thing do you have in common that just transcends everything else in your marriage? And they both said that we believe that we are Christians and we believe in God. And then they said, marriage is a commitment to the Lord. Marriage is a commitment to the Lord. And you know what? There's lots of great marital advice out there. We could watch Oprah, we could watch Dr. Phil, we could get all the how-to books. But you know what? I think that is some powerful, good advice. marriage is a commitment to the Lord. It seems to me that the Fishers have made it 86 years because they know that if you want a God-honoring marriage, you have to do it His way, and you can't do it your way. And if you want a really good marriage, not just a good marriage, not just even a really good marriage, if you want a great marriage, you've got to do it His way and not your way. And I say that as a reminder because today it's going to challenge us. It really is going to challenge us. And I may be wrong, and obviously I'm speaking from a male perspective, but I think, ladies, it's going to be more challenging for you today. But, you guys have to make your own decision there. But let me tell you, it is so worth it. It's so worth it. 86 years they've lasted. Marriage is a commitment to the Lord. So we need to do it His way. And if we want a successful marriage, we have to do it His way. So the question I have for you is, do you want a God-honoring marriage? And most of us would say, yes, of course. And if I were to ask you, do you want a great marriage? Of course. All of us would say, of course. But then we get to the details. And then you might kind of, I don't know about this. But so hang in there. It's going to challenge you. But if we do it His way, we've got a God-honoring marriage, and we also have a great marriage, the very best marriage that we can have. So let's open our Bibles. What did I say? Bibles? I don't know what I started to say. Open your Bibles to 1 Peter chapter 3. And into the New Testament. Look at that, I'm flustered because I said Bible instead of Bible. And remember now Peter is talking to these people, and they are having a really difficult time because the culture hates them, the community hates them, nobody understands them. And Peter's been telling them, you still have to be faithful. And it could be, I started to get this feeling, and I can't say this definitively, but as I read this passage, I kind of get the feeling maybe, just maybe, that they have kind of absorbed some of culture's views of what it's supposed to be like in terms of marriage, okay? A relationship between a husband and a wife. And Peter's going to come along and say, no, that's not right. He's going to give instructions to both husbands and wives. And he starts out by giving instructions to the wives. So here we go. Ladies, get ready to be challenged. Beginning in verse 1 of chapter 3. He says, wives, in the same way, be submissive to your husbands, so that, if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives, when they see the purity and reverence of your lives. Your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as braided hair and the wearing of gold clothes. Instead, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. For this is the way the holy women of the past, who put their hope in God, used to make themselves beautiful. They were submissive to their own husbands, like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called him her master. You are her daughters if you do what is right and do not give way to fear. So, ladies, you were challenged right off the bat, weren't you? Verse 1. And I'm sure you caught it. And maybe you haven't been able to get past that initial phrase, verse 1. In the same way, be submissive to your husbands. Be submissive to your husbands. Now, we've talked about this principle several times. It's a principle that's seen in the Old Testament. It's also throughout the New Testament. That is, that God, in His sovereignty, He has decided that the man is to be the leader of the home. Okay, he is the head of the home. Okay, and so if we don't like that, we have to bring it up to God, because that's what the Creator of the universe has decided. And so all wives are supposed to submit to the headship of their husbands, okay? But what is interesting here, it's clear, he talks specifically to a narrow segment. Well, I don't know if it's a narrow segment, but certain wives in particular. And these wives are married to non-Christians. According to verse 1, if any of them do not believe the word. So he's specifically telling women who are married to husbands who are not Christians. They don't go to church. They don't want anything to do with Jesus. They don't want anything to do with church. And so he says, you need to be submissive to your husbands. And now, right off the bat, that probably kind of maybe shocked some of his readers. Because perhaps they are thinking, well, now, know if my husband was a Christian, I'm supposed to submit to his headship in the family, but my husband's not even, Christian. He's a follower of Jesus. Are you saying, Peter, that I still have to submit to him? And Peter says, yeah, you do. Now, that's probably challenging enough, okay? But if you are married to a man who is not a Christian, there's extra motivation for why you should submit to your husband. Number one, the Lord wants you to do that. That's how He has designed you and designed men and women, okay? But beyond that, there is some motivation, because at the end of verse 1, he says, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives. In other words, he's talking to women who are married to non-Christians. They're not followers of Jesus. And he says, here's the deal. I want you to submit to them, just like as if he was a Christian. Okay? But here's why I want you to do it. Because you might win them to the Lord. They might eventually become a follower of Jesus like you. They might eventually become a Christian. And you don't even have to open up your mouth. You win them over by your behavior. By your submissive behavior. And specifically, he mentions in verse 2, he talks about the purity and the reverence of your life. The purity and reverence of your life. And basically, he's talking about just be a holy woman, a godly woman, okay? And you can, submit to your husband and just show him and just be a godly woman on a regular basis, day to day, at home, at work, everywhere you are. And then, if that isn't challenging enough, okay, then verses 3 and 4, then the apostle tells these women who are married to non-Christians, he says, also, my recommendation to you, my advice to you, is to not focus so much on the outward appearance, okay? Focus more on the inside. Focus more on your inner selves. Focus more on the spiritual side. Focus more on your character than you do on the outside. Again, verses 3 and 4, your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as braided hair and the wearing of gold jewelry and fine clothes. Instead, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight.